have to meet people where they're at on their level of consciousness. If I come and sit in front of my camera and I'm like, they want stuff like, the dog goes into the water. So with that analogy, whatever the hell I just did there, is how can I create a really impactful message in a third grade level? How can I create funny inspirational videos, funny fitness videos, funny speaking videos, funny therapy videos?
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the 1% Podcast. I'm your host, Vin, and
I'm Shane.
And today we are joined by my man, my friend, the legend, Nick Santonastasso. Nick, did I say that right?
Great last name.
It's because you're from New York.
Oh, I love it. Everybody always gets confused on that last name, but I practice it secretly in silence just to be able to do that intro.
Wow, this is great. Thank you so much for your dedication today.
My pleasure, man. Well, guys, Nick is going to have a phenomenal story for you, some amazing insights, I'm sure. I want to build him up, and I know that you will not be disappointed because Nick is a well-renowned speaker. He is a amazing, genuine human, and he is a very good friend of mine. I am blessed to be able to say that. Nick, thank you so much for being here today. Joining us from, are you in Dubai now? Where are you at?
I'm in Dubai, baby. I'm here.
All right.
It's 10 at night and I'm ready to rock and roll. So honored to be here. Shane, Vin, thanks for having me. I think they brought me on the 1% podcast because I have one finger. And so I'm really glad to be here. I'm really glad to rock and roll with y'all.
Nick's got 1% of the limbs.
Wow, we're starting off strong, huh?
Edit that out.
I want nothing to do with this.
Man.
You're in Dubai. I'm so jealous, man. I've always wanted to go there.
Yeah. Well, come on down, and I can later on I can get into the reason why I moved to Dubai. But I'm a big believer in, as men, putting yourself back into the fire, putting yourself back into a crucible per se. And I think as men, oftentimes we can get comfortable, whether it's in fitness, spirituality, health, whatever it is, and going back into the fire and getting forged again, I think is like a sense of rebirth. And so I try to put myself into fire every now and then.
So it's like Dubai, like the unknownness, like you went in there just both feet in and just like, let's see what this is all about.
Yeah, that's a great point. So for those that are listening, context, over the past 8 years, I've built 2 really successful companies with communication and with coaching. And so most of my revenue was generated through the American market, right? So a few $1 million through the American market. And I got to the point where I've achieved everything that I really want to achieve. And I got the house and I got the car, and I kind of sit around with my business partner. I said, is this it? And I think a lot of men and women as well, someone as humans who are pursuing things, I think entrepreneurship is like, you kick a red ball down the street and then you chase it. And then when you get the ball, you're like, oh, I got the ball. And then you kick it again and you go chase something else. And so it's this cycle. And so I think I got to the point where I was like, what's next? And I was a little bit weary on where America was going, just to be honest. I didn't know what was going. There was a lot of uncertainty. And one of my business partner was like, hey, we should check out Dubai. And so I went to Dubai last May for 9 days. And on day 3, I was like, all right, let's sell everything and move. And so I just, I'm a big believer in energy and alignment. And I believe good energy finds good energy. So when I was here, amazing things had happened. For those that are listening, I was born with no legs of an arm. And there's a massive inclusivity and accessibility initiative that is going on here. Dubai wants to be the most inclusive and accessible city. And so I found a lot of synergy, a lot of opportunity, and a lot of ways to collab. So I burned the boats and I just sold everything and moved to Dubai.
I love that, man.
I think that's also a next level of entrepreneurship too, is the impulsiveness, right? Is to give up, not give up, but to drop friends, family, and more importantly, complacency and stagnancy, and to just still continue to grow that entrepreneurial mindset that you clearly have. Day 3, you made that. That's amazing. I can't wait to, have more of this podcast. Is it limited to an hour? So.
I'm here, whatever it takes. but yeah, I agree. I think, there's a few lessons within that. And for those that are listening, is like when we drop lessons, however you can interpret that into your life. I think the first thing is oftentimes you have to let go of something of less value in order to make room for something of higher value. And sometimes that thing of lesser value seems like really important, whether it's a specific market, specific friend, specific family. And I think this was a season for me of just like letting go of older things to let the new in, and also elevating the identity. But also, I have this also extremist personality thought process of like, you're gonna die. Like, you're gonna die, bro. And so it's like time is of the essence. The train is moving. And so I want to write a really incredible movie. You know, when I go, I want to be like, damn, that was a great movie. And I would actually buy a ticket to watch that movie. And so I'm a little bit crazy. And I think in entrepreneurship, we have to be a little bit crazy, and we have to be a little bit delusionally optimistic. And so that's the take on that.
I love that, man. It's very important for everybody that is listening. I think the biggest thing that Nick is saying, and I could be wrong, but you have to be able to trust your gut as an entrepreneur, because so much of what we do has to come from an instinct, from an understanding that like this is the move. Because as an entrepreneur, you are somebody that is challenged with the opportunity to see something that does not yet exist. That's why so many people call us crazy or ridiculous, whatever, because they see things that exist and they don't see what you're trying to do. They don't believe in you, but not because of the fact that they dislike you. They just don't believe in you because they don't have the mind to believe in instinct and trust the universe. And that's what I love most about your story, Nick. You have such a deep trust and understanding with the universe. Can we do a quick little backtrack? Can you share a little bit more with the audience, your story of who you are and how you started on this amazing journey?
Of course. Yeah. So for those that are listening, I'm 28 years old. In 1996, I was diagnosed with a super rare genetic disorder called hand-heart syndrome. Hand-heart syndrome either leaves the babies with undeveloped limbs or undeveloped organs. And at the time of my birth in 1996, I was the 12th baby in medical history that they've ever seen this happen to. And out of the 12, 8 of those babies passed away due to undeveloped organs. And so before my birth, they told my parents I had about a 30% chance to live. Family, friends, doctors said you should not go throughout the pregnancy. If he does survive, you should give him away, institutionalize him. He'll be a big baby for the rest of his life. And so there was a ton of backlash on my parents going forth with the pregnancy. They went through, I was born, all the tests on my organs came back 100% healthy, and the only thing that was affected were my limbs. So I was left with no legs, a short right arm, and a fully developed left arm with the one finger on it that I showed you in the beginning of the episode if you're watching this visually. And, you know, thrown into the world. And my biggest advantage was that my parents treated me just like a full-bodied human. I think oftentimes you can have all your arms and all your legs, yet still be handicapped and crippled by your upbringing. And so if you're given everything, or you're not exposed to failure, you're not exposed to disruption, you're not exposed to any trials or challenges, or you're like bubble girl or bubble boy, you tend to get handicapped and crippled that way. And so my parents treated me very, very normal. They didn't really adapt the house for me, or they didn't adapt the clothes or the food for me and the utensils. They really just said, Nick, you got to figure out how to do things your own way. And so at an early age, there's really two things that cultivated my mindset. The first thing was I became very, very familiar with failure. It was something that I leaned into versus leaning away from. And I understood that the faster that I failed, the faster that I get feedback, the faster that I can feedback, the faster that I can succeed. And the second thing, which was massively impactful, was I was programmed to be solution oriented. The problem was not the main focus, and I was a stubborn boy who would not give up until I figured it out. And so, you know, taking those insights and that psychology into entrepreneurship in the real world, I mean, most humans, their pattern is focusing on the problem, and our problems need focus to live. Focus is like the gasoline to our problems. And so oftentimes we have teeny weeny problems where we focus all our energy on it and become massive and overwhelming. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is, you know, for those that are listening, where would you be, or what would you be pursuing if you knew you couldn't fail? You know, and I think that's one of the most powerful questions, because oftentimes we don't pursue things, we don't act, we don't execute because of fear of failure, fear of what are people going to think of me, fear of judgment. And ultimately, my philosophy in life is I much rather be the man in the arena than the one in the stands. And I don't care if I die in the arena. I don't care if I fail in the arena. I don't care if people throw tomatoes at me, whatever it is. I'd rather be the man in the arena than the one on the sideline. And so fast forward, we can go into so many facets of my life, but fast forward to now, I've spent the last 8 years of my life studying human behavior, neuroscience, neuroplasticity, inner child healing, experimental therapy, any healing modality that I can help humans get to the next level of life. And my journey has taken me all around the world. I've trained over 1 million people live from stage. I've gotten to do a 4-year world tour with Tony Robbins, create a bunch of content, gain millions of followers, and really lose myself and find myself, and lose myself and find myself, and always in the process of losing myself and finding myself.
I think, and what we didn't start the episode beforehand, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about it too. As far as losing himself and finding himself, he currently is in Dubai right now, and he visited there last May, I believe in 24, if not 23. And he stayed there for a total of 9 days. And on day 3, because of this mindset that he has and furthering investing into himself and bettering himself, he left everything behind and went to Dubai, and now is currently residing in Dubai and reestablishing himself. And, what made that transition? I think, first off, I already understand a little bit more about you based off of your story, but how do you do something like that at your age, drop everything, established companies and success and friends and family? How do you do something like that mentally and rebuild yourself? Were you scared at all? I love that you want to be in the arena, but what advice can you give to our listeners about the impulsiveness or about wanting to overcome new failures and challenges? How can you mentally prepare for something like that?
It's a great question. I appreciate it. And I think the first thing that comes to mind is typically we don't take action because of fear. And ultimately, fear is caution over a real and present danger, right? If we really want to break down the brain, fear is caution over a real and present danger. So ultimately, there's time when fear is a friend and there's time where fear is a foe, right? So the example that I give is like if it's 10 p.m. at night and your girlfriend is walking to her car in a parking garage and she's a little bit fearful and her head's on a swivel, making sure no one tries to run up on her, that time fear is a friend. It's an indicator that I should probably look out for my surroundings. But as men, if you see a really attractive girl and you want to go up to her and then you feel fear and you don't do it, fear is not a friend. It's stopping you from potentially going out with a girl or having an opportunity and experience that you never had before. So ultimately, for me, my philosophy is if I'm not going to die, then it's fabricated fear. Mm-hmm. If I'm not going to die and, flames from the sky are going to pour down and kill my whole family, like it's fabricated fear. And it's my job to override that fear and overcome myself a little bit more. Now, moving to Dubai is something extremely extreme, but I've achieved, like for me in my position, I achieved a ton in America. And I think I'm meeting my need of variety and new things by moving to different places and experiencing new things. But also, I don't think I've ever answered a question like this before. I'm crazy. I'm almost so crazy in the sense that like I have this just deep rooted conviction that I am just here for other people. It may not be a sustainable belief, but in the sense of that I'm just an offering, right? I was born with no legs, one arm, to do crazy things, to have a crazy message, to inspire the world. And if I get blessed in return, so be it, right? And so like I'm willing to go to the end of the earth to just do more, to expand myself, to create new content, to serve lives, to burn the boats, to move to a different country, to try new things, to get really uncomfortable, to go broke, to get rich, to go broke. Like I just like I'm willing to do whatever it takes to carry the torch and be this vessel of change. But also talking about family is that my parents were like, well, Nick, it's so far away. And I'm like, no, that's why we're rich. That's why you make money. Nothing is actually far away if you could buy a plane ticket in 24 hours. So your belief that something's really far away is not true, because if I wanted my parents here, they could be here in a day. we talked about this. It's like you live close by and sometimes you don't even see your parents for a couple weeks or a couple days. And so there's people that live in the same proximity, the same zip code or the same country as their family, and they don't see them, but they're like, well, I don't want to move away because I won't see my family. You don't even see your family as it is.
It's a good point.
And so for me, the philosophy is if I keep making money, I could teleport my parents here in 24 hours.
Yeah.
That's actually going to be true pretty soon. I believe that.
If we can create that, we'll be really rich too. So if y'all figure out how to teleport, that'd be great.
By the way,
that's the philosophy.
But before Vin goes into it, I think that your selflessness and the constant need to help truly speaks to the character that you are. I mean, I've only known Nick for 20 minutes now, and I can already tell just by the way that you're saying and by the way that you have this constant need to help people. It's the best kind of crazy. There's very few amount of people like you. And I feel honored and blessed to be on this podcast here, with you. So this is really awesome. And I know Vin could, speak a lot more towards the mental mindset of this too, but we've never had someone like you on this podcast before.
Yeah, I want to shout out Nick a little bit more because first up, one of the biggest things that is an important qualifier for me, and I think this should be the standard for everyone, is that your friend should inspire you. One of the things I love most about Nick is that he always inspires me. And Nick always inspires me because every time I look at him, he reminds me of how little I'm doing with my own life. The man has been a full-blown bodybuilder. He has a race car. I mean, like, he's done more than most people ever will, even at his young age. And I think that's what I love most about you, Nick. And I think one of the biggest questions that I have that I would love to see if the viewers can grab some of your wisdom on this is you've never let a limit stop you. You've always been willing to push it. You've always been on this trajectory of there is no such thing as a limit except for a mindset, right? And I know that you said a lot of it was from your parents. I don't want to say forcing you, but from your parents really honoring the fact that you need to learn to build your dichotomy, that you are not limited, that you are truly limitless. But I guess the other curiosity is, what have been some of the most helpful things you've learned? You've also talked a lot about how you've learned psychology, et cetera, but what's really something that, if somebody wanted to say, I want to be a lot more like Nick, how can they go and find a resource or something that they should practice and put into an actionable step today? Like what's something you really, really recommend can help transform people?
Yeah, it's a great question. Lately, and what's so cool about this is if people look at podcasts from me like 2 years ago, 1 year ago, 3 years ago, it's a totally different version of Nick. And so for those that are listening, congratulations, you're getting the best version of me. And then in a week, in a month, you'll get another best version of Nick. But in this present moment, one of the greatest things all of us can do is romanticize with the future so we don't stay stuck in the past. And so what I mean by that is the only reason why a man with no legs and one arm can jump out of bed faster than someone with all their arms and all their legs is because I've created such a compelling vision of what my future looks like. And I'm so married to it and I'm so excited about it that I have this level of an empowered anticipation to go after it. I think the hardest work most humans will never do is think. We don't take the time to just sit down and think about what you want. And oftentimes, if we look at life as a canvas, majority of people didn't create their own canvas. It was family and friends who poured paint on their canvas and they've been living out someone else's dream, someone else's life, and someone else's vision. They haven't thought about it. Just think about it. How many people go to school and get a job because it's what their parents wanted them to do, and or go into the specific field because that's what they thought they needed to do in order to get their parents' love, all this different type of stuff. And don't get me wrong, I'm not preaching from a place of perfect. I've spent a lot of my life pursuing someone else's vision. But one of the first things that I did when I got to Dubai, and by the way, I do this like every 6 to 8 months, regardless of whether I'm moving countries or not, is I sit down and I say, what do I want my life to look like for the next year? What body fat percentage do I want to be at? How much money do I want to give my parents? What countries do I want to travel to? How many content pieces do I want to create? What kind of car do you want to buy? Do you want a driver? Do you want a chef? What do you want and I just get crazy about it. And I romanticize with the future, because if you have this level of anticipation for your future, you kind of forget about all the BS that keeps you in the past. And the truth is that most humans take the slide screen or the slideshow of their past and they throw it on the future and they live the same damn life for 20, 30, 40 years. It's just the same old life over and over again. And so everybody listening right now, what I would highly suggest you do after this episode, or you find some time this week, is you go into a quiet place. Maybe you put on some music, maybe there's a view, and you're like, what do I want? Pick up the paintbrush of your life and start painting it out. Because once you get clear in what you want, let's go nerdy here, the RAS, the reticular activating system in your brain, will then find the people, the networks, the resources, the opportunities to get you to the next level, right? What's a great example is like right now, for those that are listening to this podcast, is this the only podcast that is being streamed? No, but it's the only one you're tuned into. Most people are tuned into fear. Most people are tuned into anxiety. Most people are tuned into stress. Most people are tuned into scarcity and contraction. There are opportunities, there's money, there's resources, there's blessings all around you, but you're not tuned into the right thing because you've been focusing on all the things that you don't want, so you get more of the things that you don't want. So let's just shift that and paint the vision of what we do want, and then let's see if magic happens. I much rather have the belief that magic is real versus having the belief that magic isn't real. I much rather have the belief that God, the universe, is conspiring for me versus having the belief that the world's against me and I just have bad luck. You get what your beliefs are. And if anyone can teach you that, it's the man with no legs of an arm who had all the odds stacked against him. And when people look at me, they're like, oh, wow, he's disabled. I'm like, no, you're actually the handicapped and crippled one because your psychology sucks. And I don't even have legs and I'm running laps around you. Not because of my physical body, but because of the psychology and beliefs. So all of you are truly capable of achieving whatever you want to do, but get curious, start romanticizing with the future, and find someone who has the life or the results that you want and find out how to get the information. Because I'll end with this. When you see someone doing something at a higher level than you, they're not better than you. They've been exposed to information that you haven't been exposed to. The most dangerous information is the information that you don't know. And so when you see someone who's richer, smarter, better shape than you, don't be like, man, I can't do it. Ask yourself, what do they know that I don't, and how can I get that information?
I have that quote right here. Be curious. I love that. I think that being curious is a great mental transition, and the rest really will come to it. I'm curious of your past and how you got to where you are. Have you, as far as in regards to entrepreneurship and your journey to be getting, to here, have you ever had a W-2 position? Have you ever worked a corporate job? And then when did you start entrepreneurship? When did you make this mental transition?
That's a great question. I don't think many people have ever asked me about a W-2. That's cool. And so I had one job when I was 20 years old. I was pursuing bodybuilding. Another crazy thing. They're like, how are you going to become a bodybuilder, right? Just crazy. I'm just insane. And so my mentor at the time was an owner. He still owns a meal prep company, a successful meal prep company in Tampa, Florida. He reached out to me. He was like, hey, have you ever thought about coming to Florida? I was like, no. I lived in New Jersey. Vin knows it's like miserable. I think you know as well. I don't know where you live, Shane. Where do you live?
I'm in Vegas.
Okay, great. A little bit better. And so he was like, have you ever thought about coming to Florida? I was like, no. And he's like, would you like to tour my facility, my meal prep facility, and I'll host you? I'm like, great. And so I go out to Florida, right? And one of the greatest concepts we talk about is the law of exposure, right? Which states once you're exposed, you can never be unexposed. Once you put the goggles on, you can never see life the same. I go to Florida and I'm like, is the weather always like this? He's like, yeah. I was like, are people were fit. It was a healthy environment. I'm like, do people love to be in shape here? He's like, yeah, it's just the weather helps. The environment helps. Like people are just happier here. I'm way happier than New Jersey. But I love where I came from, but I'm glad I evolved. And so after I went to that facility, he was like, you should move here. And I was like, well, I'm broke, like I smoke pot. I live in my parents' basement and I lift weights. That's all I know how to do. And he's like, well, I'll give you a job as a customer service rep part-time. This is how much I can pay you. Find a place where you can cover your expenses and some food, just bare minimum, and we'll get you going. And so I was like, let's go. So I moved to Tampa, and he gave me a job as a customer service rep where I'd pick up phones and I'd solve problems. I was the worst employee. If no one was in the office and someone called, I wouldn't pick the phone up. I wouldn't want to talk to people. And I think Sorry, Chris, if you're watching this, but
I was just thinking that too.
I just wouldn't pick the phone up. I think maybe because this is Nick. Lack of communication skills,
You weren't being challenged enough.
lack of people skills, lack of I didn't know the answers, so I didn't want to feel inadequate, exposed. I could dive into a bunch of trauma things, but really I was just mentally unemployable, and I just hated picking up phones, and I would do the bare minimum. And literally, I'm really exposing myself here. I would literally clock out. I would get in my car, take the biggest rip of my weed pen, and I'd drive home. And then I go work out, and like that was my life. Now, let me just unpack a few things here. The mentor, though, changed my life forever, because regardless of whether I didn't like that customer service job or not, he was like, hey, you should journal. What's journal? Here, you should read this book, the 10X Rule by Grant Cardone, right? This guy's named Gary Vee. He creates content. This is how you post on Instagram and do captions. He would push me to do a daily post. He pushed me to get in better shape, right? And so regardless of whether I was mentally unemployable or not, success leaves clues. It doesn't matter if you're the janitor, whether you're the cook, whether you're the customer service rep, when you're around successful people, study them. How do they show up? How do they answer texts? How do they answer phone calls? What are their habits? What are they drinking? What do they hang out on the weekends? And so I got exposed to this whole life, because the truth is my parents weren't entrepreneurs. My dad early on, he had exited a company, but he had went back into the corporate world. And so like I didn't come from a family that was like balling out. I didn't come from a family of entrepreneurs. It was more conservative, less risk. And so that was the story of how a mentor changed my life, but that was my only W-2. And yeah, I hated the job. And then I met my business partner, that's still my business partner now, at a mastermind, and I shared my story, and he was like, you could be on stage with Tony Robbins one day. And I was like, who's Tony Robbins? Remember, I was a pothead bodybuilder. That's all I knew how to do. And he's like, we should start a company together. If you like the work that we do, I'll work for you for free. And 2 weeks later, my business partner now called me in that office and was like, hey, I'm trying to schedule meetings, but like your job it gets in the way. Like, if you really want to do this, you got to quit your job. So I quit my job. I moved in on the couch, and we started building this company. I had no idea what I was doing. That was a really long-winded answer.
Personally, if that's not connecting with a lot of our audience right then and there, having a dead-end job that's not going to go anywhere, smoking pot, doing something to try to just live and survive, and taking advantage of an opportunity, that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened to me. I went to culinary school. I worked as a regular part-time chef, smoking weed, doing other activities that I'm not going to mention here. And I saw an opportunity. My business partner started a marketing company. He needed somebody that was good at sales. Blossom. That was over 10 years ago. And we parted ways, and I started my own thing. But this is how it starts. I think it's so important that people lose mind of how they started, and they're just so focused on where they're at and envious. But it's like, we were nobodies, all of us. Right? Vin was the best out of all of us. He had a firefighting job, and he also got his degree in therapy. He worked his ass off, but
I've still made less than all of you.
Yeah, but we were two stoners. But the mindset is we were hustlers. We saw an opportunity. We took it, and we never fucking looked back. And we still this way in that mindset. Anyways, I'm sure Vin could talk about that too. I didn't have a coach, and I think you fast-tracked your success because you listened to a successful coach. I know Vin and I could talk all day about bad coaches and really vet good coaches and bad coaches and finding that out there. But God, I love it. It pumps me up, man.
Yeah, I think too. It's this conversation is refreshing because it's good to reflect now. Like I was literally just in a meeting before this, and I like directly just said, I was like, hey guys, like, yeah, we can make like $30,000, $50,000, $70,000. This isn't worth my time. I'll do it because I like you guys. I don't really care about the split. This isn't worth my time. And then as we're talking about me like making $1,500 and like just getting by, I'm like, all right, Nick, came a long way here. But also this is interesting. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Vin and Shane. I almost wish I was ignorant. sometimes, where like I didn't know that this whole life was out there, because like now I can't stop. Right now it's like you're exposed to so much, especially on social media. I mean, there's just so like you just like, oh, I don't have $100 million. I need to keep pushing. Right. And it's like I kind of like have compassion and love for people who like just are like, yeah, I'm chilling, bro. I'm just work this job, and I just, I'm like, yo, there was a time where life was simple, and like as long as I got my meals in and I hit my workout and I had weed, I was successful. There was a good
So
time.
we talk about that.
Dude.
It's a mindset. Complacency and is a mindset, right? I have friends that have families that work their 9 to 5s. But if you think about it in that ideology, that's all they do. They don't think about furthering their self or their career path because they're content, because they're happy, because they're complacent. But imagine going from 9 to 5. That's all you have to do. Then after 5 o'clock, you can do whatever you want. You want to hang out with your family and your kids and your friends and go to bars and doing that, that's fine. That is a simple life. That is a very great life. But it's the people in between that bitch and complain about where they're at and they're not doing anything about it. That's what bothers me, right? If you want to do something about it, then do something about it. Stop bitching and complaining and put yourself out there and make something happen. Those are the ones that really bother me. And Nick knows that, or excuse me, Ben knows that. Yeah. Ben, you
Dude,
need to say something over here.
I have something good. No, I mean, it's kind of funny that Nick mentions that, because there have been times where like business was going so bad that I was just like, man, you know what I would love to do right now? I'd love to just quit my business and go work at Dick's Sporting Goods and like just screw around at a bullshit job all day. It's like it would be super easy and relaxing, and like there's no consequence for failing here, because like what do? Oh, the customer service wasn't good. Oh, I sold somebody the wrong pair of cleats. Like those are very inconsequential to what I currently do, and I honestly do have those moments where I just fantasize about like, man, wouldn't it be cool to just go to Dick's, screw around for 8 hours with some coworkers, make like $200 for the day, and then come home and play video games, and then just do it all again tomorrow. Like that would be such a chill life. But then it's like the inside of me is like, dude, what the hell? What are you even talking about? Are you that stressed that you're thinking like that? And I think it's funny because there's actually nothing wrong with that life, if that's the life you want to live. But to Nick's point, it's that law of exposure, because I actually in any right frame of mind, I can't say like, oh, that would actually be more fulfilling. That would be more fun. That would be more exciting. It's me recognizing it's my stress response of like, when people, their lives are so stressful, they're like, oh, I just want to move to a remote island. It's like, you don't actually want to move to a remote island. You just don't have a solution for your problem. So the best idea is to go where there is no problems. But I think it's that funny awareness, right? Is like people can get stuck in their own complacency, and people can make decisions based out of that desire for a break. But as high performers, as people who strive to be in that 1% category, I think we'll always be resistant to making those silly changes, because it sounds great in theory because we just know, wow, there'll be no stress. But honestly, I I probably would be bored after 3 days of doing that. I think we all would, because it's the stress that makes life exciting. We need to embrace that part of it. Like you can't have a good life if there's nothing in comparison that's stressful to make it all worthwhile. Like you need all of it. And we forget that sometimes as humans. The experience here is not an experience of pure joy. It's an experience of everything. And everything has the balance. It has the scales. It has the good. It has the bad. It has the moments that make you cry and say why. And then it has the moments that make you jump with joy and feel excitement that you're even here, having that second of enthusiasm. And I think it's we're all trying to figure that out, right? Like who isn't?
It's a good point.
I personally disagree. I never, ever, ever want to go back to working for anybody else. I never want that type of lifestyle. Don't put me in that category. Once you get a taste of entrepreneurship and the failure and success all rides on you in your hands, there's nothing like it. When you get backed into a corner and you're like, okay, I got to figure this shit out. Otherwise, it's over. You figure it out. I love that. It's almost a high. It's like a dopamine for me. I didn't get to where I am from just this. Do you know what success looks like? It's fucking this, man. It's always like that. All these
Same
great
doing
names,
the
I'd love to
wave.
say it's from my wife and kids. No way. It's from entrepreneurship and figuring problems out. But who doesn't love that? Who doesn't love figuring problems out? I don't like that simplistic lifestyle. That is not for me. It hasn't been for me since ever, since I got my first job at Cold Stone, and I quit because they wanted me to work on Halloween. I was 15. I said, screw that. I'm not coming in there. Starbucks for 6 months. No, I'm not making coffees anymore. It's not happening. Just took a while, but you get there. Once you write it all in yourself, there's no going back, at least for me.
Shane, for your birthday, I'm taking you over to Dick's Sporting Goods. You don't know it, but I've already got you a job. Your application has been approved.
I was hoping you said Cold Stone because that's my weakness. I love
Yeah.
Cold Stone. Oh my.
That's been my weakness for a while now.
But I think too. Well, there's an interesting insight, right? Because like we could argue the fact that like is entrepreneurship for every man?
No.
It's like I don't think so, right? So like I think all levels of value make the world go around as well. But also, I just think regardless of what level people are at, just be on a mission though. I think mission and purpose gives men a new sense of confidence, a new sense of identity, a new sense of certainty. By the way, like women like a man who's on purpose, who has a mission, who has clarity. So whatever that is, it's like for those that are listening, your mission doesn't need to be $100 million, but if your mission's like just clarity on like where you want to go, I just think that helps, right? And that's what I've realized too is like I can't push everybody into the box that I want to do. Like not everybody's going to move to Dubai or be crazy or start a business. I just want you to have clarity and mission and purpose. And I think that everybody can find a new sense of purpose. And I think it's a never-ending road to find purpose too. I think I'm still trying to figure out what the hell I want to do when I grow up. You know, it's a constant, never-ending journey.
Nick, what would you say has been one of the biggest problems that you had to overcome in business? Like what's something that you really had to figure out that might have been a constraint within the business? And once you, I guess, overcame that or solved it, the floodgates just opened.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I'm going through one right now, but I'll share one in the past, and I'll share the current one. The one in the past was when my first company was solely speaking engagements, right? So I had to go and speak, and Nick would get paid if he was at the event. And COVID hit and destroyed that. And it was either I evolved or I died, in the sense of like business died. And the way that I needed to evolve was I needed to go from just a speaker to a transformational facilitator. I needed to go from a speaker to a true teacher and having some sort of real knowledge and skills that I can transfer to other people. I needed to create digital products. I needed to understand digital marketing and funnels and email building and all this different type of stuff. And so that was a moment that was like make it or break it. And I think a lot of people, those that executed and evolved during COVID, it was actually a great gift. They probably wouldn't have evolved and expanded in the way that they have if it wasn't for that situation putting the back against the wall, as Shane said, right? I think healthy pressure and sometimes unhealthy pressure introduces yourself to a version of yourself you haven't met yet. And so that was a massive problem and a massive break in the business, which then, you know, I made hundreds of thousands of dollars selling online products. And so that was a big expansion, but it came from a massive problem. Now I'm at a point in my life where I feel like I built my business backwards. And what I mean by that is I spent all of this energy becoming a really great facilitator, all of these healing modalities. I can outspeak 99% of people on stage in the sense of value and transformation. What I didn't focus on heavily was brand, content. And I actually got to the point where like I started, Vin, we talked about this, like there's been many years where I just posted like really serious content because I felt like the only way people would accept me as a speaker and as a business leader and you want me to come into your event is if I sat in front of the camera and I was like neuroplasticity and you know, I was like really just like nerded out. And I killed off Nick. I killed off like a really important version of Nick, which was fun Nick, which was entertaining Nick, which was playful Nick. I killed off that version of myself. And so now 2025, I'm like, yo, I'm an entertainer. I'm not just a dude that speaks on stage. Like, I'm funny. I'm playful. I can make jokes. I can create viral content like that. And so I'm stepping more into this playful arena of my life. And but also, like, I'm not going to say names, but there's people out there who get paid three times what I get paid, which is a lot of money on stage, and they're not good, but they get paid more than me because their Instagram has a higher number than mine. They have more eyeballs. And so, like, I feel like when it comes to mastery and execution in the field, I'm top tier. But when it comes to like eyeballs and virality, that wasn't my focus. So now I'm flip flopping here. It's like I already have the expertise and the mastery. Now watch what I do. Now I'm gonna go extremely viral. I'm gonna blow up all my social medias, and then brands start chasing you. And then I thought it was the other way around, and it took me years to figure that out. Even though maybe I knew it, but I was resistant to it. Here's another insight is, and this probably relates to a lot of like to you two and a lot of people listening, is when life is challenging and all you really know is challenge, you start unconsciously correlating success with struggle, meaning that you feel like the only way that you could be successful is if it's super hard and you're eating shit. And I want to challenge that. I want to say, like, it doesn't always have to be eating shit. Like, there could be an opportunity that is brought to you or a deal brought to you, and it's like, wow, this feels really good, but then your brain's like, there's no fucking way. There's no way that could be the deal. This is too easy. But it could be. What if it could be? What if it could be the more Shane plays, the more money he makes? What if the more Vin is playful and shows that part of him, the more money he makes? What if if we're the creators and we designed it, what if the more Nick played, the more he got paid? Right? So that's where I'm at this day and age. And also what I realized is with content creation and speaking is I have to meet people where they're at on their level of consciousness. So if I come and sit in front of my camera and I'm like, the autonomic nervous system, and this is how you neutralize trauma, people are like, they want stuff like the dog goes into the water. Like, so with that analogy, whatever the hell I just did there is, how can I create a really impactful message in a third grade level? How can I create funny inspirational videos, funny fitness videos, funny speaking videos, funny therapy videos? Because the truth is, majority of the world is at a very low consciousness.
It's the attention span too, right? The people's attention span, especially with social media these days, you got to give it to me like this in a way that I can understand it clearly. Didn't I talk about this a lot on the podcast of where, things are going in this technology era, especially with AI taking over and a lot of people even buying on TikTok shops. And, I think eventually these auction houses are going to overtake Amazon. Obviously, Amazon is a gigantic powerhouse, but what I mean by that is when you have an influencer that you know, like, and trust who is promoting a product, and you're impulsive and you're like, I want to be like this guy, and they're buying this, boom, they buy it right then and there. I think that movement has been there for 3 to 4 years, and people who don't take advantage of it now, you're missing out. I agree with you 100%. My mindset, my business exploded during COVID because people reevaluated the in-house employee and went virtual. Now I'm at a place where this isn't working. I need more ways to get more appointments in through the doors. How can I do that? Content creation, right? Doing a podcast weekly to talk about entrepreneurship and delegation and marketing tactics and successful business owners. Content strategy in a fun, easy way that people understand it, that just go to my DMs or go and say, hey, I want to do what you do, or hey, how do I get more information on this? That is the main goal. That is the top number one way of marketing today in this day and age. And to be honest, it's going to go nowhere but up. This is the way it is right now. It's constantly evolving and changing. So I'm glad that, again, you saw how your business was, even though it was successful. You're like, how can it be even better? This is how I do it. This is how I'm seeing it. This, instead of even the way you were doing your public speaking, completely evolved and changed to, one, find out who Nick was and your inner self and your personality, but two, what correlates with the audience, what's buying and selling more from this too. I'm agreeing with what you're putting out there.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I think a lot of people have killed off version of themselves because they think they need to be a specific way. And I think it takes a level of enlightenment or awareness, or you have to walk the journey long enough to realize like maybe this is a dead end. And these days, especially as men, I think it's a worthy opponent, but I'm trying to make decisions from the heart versus the head these days. What feels right? What feels right? What feels fluid and flowy? Because this was another thing too. Vin, I'd love to hear your thoughts because we're cut from the same cloth with Tony Robbins, and that mentality is a lot of like pushing through the 3D world. It's like kicking down doors, breaking through, stepping up. And when I jumped into the Joe Dispenza world of quantum theory, and this is a whole nother rabbit hole, but quantum theory and meditation, it was like, hey, you don't have to push. You can just become a magnet and draw everything to you. You can draw the right resources, opportunities, blessings by feeling things. And I know that sounds so weird for men. So I'm just at this point where like I feel my way through business now. I don't think. I want to feel, and if it feels right and it feels fun and it gives me energy, it's like I want to do that. I don't want to, like I said, I'm turning down money because I'm like, yeah, money's great, but like that don't get me horny. Like that don't get me sauced up. Like that doesn't get me all like the truth is it's like, yo, I want to be jacked up. I want to be horned up about something. Had to put it in there, pattern interrupt, had to drop the horny word, pattern interrupt everybody.
I love it. I believe very
He's
much.
like, I'm horny.
Yeah, I'm right under the desk.
We're all right.
Sorry, Mom. But I'm a big believer that there is this learned, I guess this mentality that you brought up before about how entrepreneurship is just supposed to be hardship and strife, and to some degree, I think that it's a yes and a no. I think entrepreneurship is supposed to be hard and strife at the start because you're literally trying to build something that does not exist, whether it's not just a business, but also your mindset. And the biggest, hardest part of it is the identity, like the next version of you that's capable of that achievement. But then the other part is that has to be that transition. And the transition comes in because to the quantum realm, I like to look at manifestation as a very explainable thing, where manifestation to me, and I believe this is kind of what Joe Dispenza describes, I could be wrong, so you're welcome to correct me, but I believe that manifestation to me is like all you need to do is become the thing that you're seeking. Like the point of the goal isn't the goal itself. The point of the goal is to have you evolve into the person capable of living out that goal. So if you're capable of living out the goal because you've become the person, you've provided the value, you've got the energetic pull to you, you have the mindset, you have the skill set, the heart set, whatever that is, there's no reason the goal shouldn't be coming to you, right? So I look at it from that standpoint. It's like everything you want isn't out of reach. You're just not the person capable of having it yet. And then once you are, you turn around and it's all right there because you've accumulated on your growth journey. So I see that as more like get out of the hard, heavy headspace because it only serves you to a small point. And once you really kind of figure out the physical part of this world, step into that quantum spiritual part of this world and manifest the rest of it because now you're essentially that person. So that's how I see it.
I think beautifully put. It's what was it? It's like thinking, doing, being. It's like most people, or no, what is it? Be it, own it. I'm all jacked up here, but they do it backwards. When people want something, they're like, what do I have to do in order to get the thing? Oh, be, do, have. That's what it is. Be, do, have. But most people are have, do, be.
Right.
I have the thing or I want the thing. What do I need to do to get the thing? When in reality, it's like, who do I just need to become to attract the right opportunities? Because success isn't something that you pursue. Success is something that you attract by being attractive.
Yep. I love it. Well, Nick, we're getting close to the end here. And obviously this has been a phenomenal conversation that I never want to end, but we got two final questions for you. It's pretty standard. One of them is, as you know, this is the 1% podcast. Our belief is that you don't exactly. Our belief is that you do not have to be a billionaire to be a 1%er. The ideology is that a 1%er can be anybody who's trying to be the best at something that they want to dedicate themselves to. What do you believe is your version of a 1% lifestyle?
That's a really great question. I think my version of the 1% is me versus me. And for me, identifying what that 1% version of myself is, not looking in the external world for the 1%, but it's like when I look at myself in the mirror, what are my gaps and how can I destroy those gaps or how can I evolve those gaps? I think oftentimes like we're trying to compare ourselves to other people when in reality, it's like that cliche thing. The only competition is the person in the mirror. And so for me, being 1% is always finding those small shifts within myself to evolve as a man. Whether that's my health, my nutrition, my spirituality, my business, my purpose, my vices, my addictions, all of that different type of stuff. As long as I'm aware of those and attacking those things, I think you are well above the 99% and you're living a 1% lifestyle.
I love that, man. And last question for you. Where can people find you? Is there a best thing that people should do to get in touch with you? Or is there anything that you'd like to give our audience? Feel free. This is your time to shine, or however you want people to get connected.
Great. Yeah, Vin knows me well. Usually I would slang something and I would sell y'all something. But at this point, Nick has nothing to sell you because most of you don't take action and I'm not dragging you over the finish line anyway. So you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook at Nick Santonastasso. I'm the most handsome man with no legs but arms. So you will always find me. And what I would say is consume the content and change your life. That's the greatest gift that you can give a mentor is execution and implementation, right? For those that think they're worthy of maybe jumping into anything that I have, I don't really have anything anymore. I do very high level communication coaching with high level individuals. So if you think you can hang, so be it, but most of you can't, so don't message me. And with that being said, consume the content, change your life. Most importantly, just be the one in the family that changes it. I'm just a big believer that all of you have the duty and the obligation to be the lineage leader and to break the bloodline traumas, to break the financial trauma, to be the one that totally just changes your whole lineage. And I take pride in that. You should take pride in that as well, especially as men.
I love it. Nick, as always, it's so great connecting and just chatting with you and getting to share wisdom and talk life. Thank you so much for coming on here today. Hang out for a minute after. We'll give you a little quick debrief. But as always, everybody, please join us next time. Stay tuned. Like, share, subscribe, comment, do whatever you want to do. Reach out to Nick or don't, because you probably can't. But hope you guys took some actionable lessons from this podcast today. Thank you for being here. I'm your host, Vin, and
I'm Shane.
And that was Nick, everybody. See ya.
Bye, guys.